Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rush Hour podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by some of my favorite people, not just in Bachelor Nation, but beyond. It's the host of the Game of Roses podcast, Chad and Lizzie. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you? It's been just one of the best weeks of my life,
Because of the results of the election, you're flourishing? Is that what it is?
The election, the fires just couldn't get better.
Are you guys doing okay as far as not being in harm's way, Chad?
Yeah, Lizzie and I both, kind of escaped the brunt of it, but, both
Chad
of us have
didn't have
friends.
to do shit. I had to evacuate. I lived on my parents' couch for 5 days, but I thought it was 3.
Are you back? Did you return from evacuation?
Yes, but my friends' houses have burned down.
Oh my gosh.
There has been horrific things that have happened.
I'm so sorry.
I'm fine.
I feel like the last time I saw you was at your house for your Christmas party right before we moved.
I was so upset, Dave. I'm still upset. I'm not over it.
Because of me moving or because of the fires? Which one?
No, because you moved away from LA.
Worst part of the year that I moved away. Well, I certainly miss you guys, but I don't feel like I've gone far because I consume all of your content. You're absolutely crushing it. I was hoping to cover a little bit of the upcoming season, but more so like a state of the union with regards to how you guys are doing. Chad, where's the podcast? You're on YouTube. You guys are thriving. Give me some updates.
Yeah, I mean, we're just excited to see what happens with Grant Ellis' season. I coach players kind of secretly behind the scenes to infiltrate The Bachelor, and I've had good success with that in the past few seasons. And this season, going into Grant's season, I got more DMs about wanting to get into his season than I've ever gotten before for any prior Bachelor, including Joey Graziadei. And some of the players that I was coaching that did not get into the show, I was like, oh, then who's getting into the show? And we just looked at all their Instagrams and TikToks, and I was like, okay, I get it. The caliber of player coming into Grant Ellis' season, I think, is higher than we've ever seen volumetrically, like across the board. There were like 2 or 3 Instagrams that I was kind of like, this isn't good. Everybody else, high professional level. So I feel like our coverage of this season is going to be very good. But yeah, we're on YouTube now. And that's been a fun, interesting journey. I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on that as well. You're obviously crushing the YouTube game just with the pace you put stuff out is, I don't really understand
astounding.
it, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Well,
it's very astounding. And everything I know about Justin Baldoni, I've only learned from you. So.
Well, of course, I don't like to do this, but you'll watch things online where people get the story so completely wrong. And I was watching Nick Viall, and he got it so wrong, and then he doubled down after his audience was schooling him, and he's going viral for the wrong reasons right now. And it's a lot. I mean, these are the lawsuits, but between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, I've read them on my stream, and they are 6 hours to get through each one. So anyone who claims they have a hot take that hasn't read through it all, it's a tough one. It's really complicated. But today, Justin Baldoni released footage that kind of refutes one of her claims. So it's pretty, you guys know from the film world, imagine calling somebody out and then they have 3 cameras and audio of footage that just show that you're lying. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to hurt the credibility if you're going into a trial over any of this kind of stuff, or even arbitration, I guess. Yeah, it's nuts. That's a crazy situation.
Yeah,
it's so wild to me. And I'm like, I can't believe the amount of stuff that we're going to see from this. I didn't follow any of the other big one where they were like, who's lying?
Johnny Depp, Amber Heard.
Johnny Depp. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's another hot one where the jury for that sided with Johnny Depp. Now, I tried my best. You guys know how it is when you cover stuff like the audience is on Reddit, they're like very ultra left, and then on YouTube they're kind of more centrist. Every app kind of skews a little bit differently, but through my coverage of some of these sort of reality TV stories, you get audiences of all types, and you have to learn to talk to people that might be outside your bubble. We have a lot of audience that have cover the Clayton Echard trial that are conservative. I'm a traditional progressive. Chad, we were talking before we went on air about your podcast, what you do with your parents. I think it's so great for if folks don't get triggered by it, like my wife would get triggered by this. But I think it's so great to have these complicated conversations. How's it going talking to your parents on your podcast with completely different political viewpoints?
Yeah, for those who don't know, I do this podcast called The Necessary Conversation, where my sister and I, both of us are extremely liberal, have a conversation every week with our parents who are like deep QAnon, MAGA, Trump supporting. They bought like Trump's cologne. That's how like in the tank.
They are buying everything Trump is making.
Yeah. Except his meme coins. They don't understand how to use the internet, so they will not buy his meme coin. But we talk to them every week about politics, like the biggest political issues of the week. And I think my goal in this, it's like an ulterior motive. I really don't care about anything other than trying to pull my mom back to sanity. My dad is gone, but I am trying on that podcast to get my mom to kind of turn the corner. And I think I'm getting close. There are little cracks starting to show in the facade of her, loyalist kind of ideology to Trump. So I think I'm getting close to that. And that's really like primarily why I do that podcast. It's not monetized. This is purely a labor of love to try and save my mom.
You know, I think it's brilliant, and I think I pitched this before, but I'd love a podcast where you start ultra right wing and try to build that audience, and then over the course of 100 episodes, try to pull them to left wing.
Yeah,
ooh,
I'm having a change
long
of heart.
con. Interesting.
Super right, and then people are like, "We love these guys," and then we're like, "Well, universal healthcare wouldn't be the worst idea."
Well, Chad's mom is pulling the other way, and I don't think she's made much progress.
Well, I find it so interesting because when you would talk to your dad early on, and you can let me know if it's changed, but early on, he would have this sort of like volcanic response right away, like this angry, and my stepdad's the same way. Yeah. Whereas if you want to talk about something, they just get into this crazy thing. Is that like Rush Limbaugh reincarnated? What have you been able to sort of look into the psyche of what might be happening with that sort of trigger?
I think I've pretty accurately broken down why my parents are this way. And for me, it's just a matter of like
trauma.
Yes, trauma in their own childhoods, and kind of like how my dad was raised that taught him to kind of be like me against the world type attitude. He's highly competitive. If you're not with him, you are against him, and therefore you must lose, and whatever that endeavor may be. And I think that just, Trump is selling that. It's like, those are our enemies. We will fight them. Fuck everybody else. And my dad just like buys that hook, line, and sinker. He's also racist, so that helps. But
that's a big part of it, I think.
That's a big part of it. But
racism is fear, right? No, racism is fear. A lot of it's fear-based, and it triggers this like animalistic, like me versus the world. We call it rugged individualism. But it's like, I'm sure your parents, if they saw, someone who needed help in person, they would help them. But right, it's like this bigger idea.
I don't think that's right about them. But
that's so sweet, Dave.
Yeah, we all like to believe that, but no, I don't think my parents would. I agree with what you're saying. I think most kind of negative emotional or psychological response to anything in the human pantheon of reactions always boils down to fear of death. It always is that. That is the underlying fear beneath all fears, beneath all animosities. And it's also the thing that's beneath the kind of competitive impulse. It's like, I have to get more stuff to make my life better, which means you have to have less stuff. It's just the baseline competitive instinct.
Yeah, and I actually feel like I feel with my parents, or at least with my stepdad, he would probably rather me die of cancer than pass universal health care. Like, there's certain things where like you can't crack their ideology. We had a family member who got run over, and they're okay, but it was a massive error by a company that they ran over them. And my stepdad didn't want my family member to sue. And it was like, he's so against like certain things, like suing, doing what's right, to the point where he had $100,000 medical procedure that the insurance company was supposed to cover, and they didn't, and he wouldn't even get like a lawyer involved for his own benefit. So it's almost like some people are willing to be robbed blind to an extent that far exceeds what our generation might be okay dealing with. You know what I mean?
Like, one of my uncles got his foot run over, and he sued, and then he never had to work again.
Well, see there, yeah, that would have been, but no, not my family. They'd rather no. That's duping the system, and it's like my mom came up on welfare when she was a single mom, like so she understands the social fabric that kind of keeps us from hitting rock bottom. So Lizzie, do you is this foreign to you to see Chad's dynamic with his parents, or do you have some of that in your family?
I mean, luckily, no, not. I mean, I've certainly fought, but I would say we're much closer aligned than Chad and his parents. I do really feel like watching everything that's happening, it does feel like it's like you're either brought up, it's like survival versus like love as like the point of life, like, do you think you're competing with other people for resources, or do you think there's enough for everyone?
That's a great way to put it.
That's not the point of life.
For Game of Roses, do you guys consciously talk about, like, before you go live, about how far you want to get into politics? Because it can be divisive. I always said, like, if I didn't cover half the stuff I cover, I'd have 100,000 subscribers by now. But boy, do I make a lot of enemies. And it's like that balance between being authentic versus like knowing you might push people away. What do you guys do as far as like talking about the infrastructure of your show?
I mean, for us, like when we first started this podcast, it kind of like lined right up with the pandemic and the George Floyd protests and all of that stuff. So, and Trump was president. So we did talk about how reality TV and that current president, now our president again, was a reality TV show host, and how it's all kind of tied together. And the media you're seeing, whether it's The Bachelor or Survivor, or any reality TV show, there are political things behind that. There are presidents of networks making decisions that are based on what will this administration do to our network? Will there be lawsuits? All that. So we were, I think, talking about that much more than we used to. Now, I think
can't not. I mean, they were so tied together, and he was saying my ratings for my speech are Bachelor finale ratings. He literally said that.
Yeah, he said that at a COVID press conference. But, it kind of got to a point for us. I mean, for me, I won't speak on your behalf, Liz, but I think we feel roughly the same way about this. It's like watching The Bachelor and reality TV. We want it for us personally to be like an escape where we can really indulge in just the game of the reality TV show and try to kind of keep that other shit out of it at this point, because that other shit is just like so ever present in everything you watch and read that it's like, let us have this one little thing where we can just indulge in our fandom of this and really pick it apart and analyze it and have fun with it, like an ESPN or something,
I can't even turn my TV on without a video playing of him giving like news.
Yeah,
and normalizing the whole thing.
It's complicated, right?
Intense. Because I couldn't even open TikTok without it. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chad and I have purposely, tried to make it more about, we see ourselves as the ESPN of reality TV, and seeing it as a sport and taking kind of like the moralism that can sometimes happen around watching reality TV out of it, and not being like, this is a bad person, but being like, oh, they're making an error in their gameplay. They're not a bad person.
I think it's great to be able, it's like, reality Steve, well, if you go to him, you're going to get spoilers. Like, you just know what he's all about. So you talked about ESPN. I just read in an interview, and I think you guys covered this on your YouTube.
I read it word for word. You're talking about the Bustle article with Nick Viall?
I was going to text you this, but I figured we were just saving it.
Wait, what? I don't know about this.
He says he wants to be the sports center of reality TV. And I was like, oh, you guys have been saying that for literal years.
Yes.
Stop.
He likes to pretend. He doesn't know who we are or what we do, but I think he knows very well who we are. And I think he watches our show. I mean, to me, there's just too much.
He watches our show? No.
Yeah, I think he has. Yeah, for sure.
I don't mean to bash him, but he doesn't have a quarter of the talent. You guys are, well, I put it this way: you guys come from the world of entertainment, so you understand. You guys are Writers Guild. You have so much depth to what you know with regard to this industry. He was a guy who got plucked into a position like a lot of these folks who kind of made it like you would if there was a sort of the Golden Globes, no one would ever look at reality. It's just a different world, like a reality star versus scripted, and you guys come from that scripted world. So I think it's great the way you guys know how to analyze it all. But I did find that interesting, and it's like, look, he's allowed to say he wants to be the sports center, but I thought
he was the Meet the Press. I thought that was his thing.
There was an article
Meet
about
the press of reality TV.
he was talking specifically about, he has a podcast network now, and he's launching some other podcasts with other reality TV people, and he's viewing that reality TV network, that podcast network, as like the ESPN or whatever. But he doesn't understand what that means, I feel like, and he's not launching the correct podcast. He doesn't understand how to structure that properly. If he's listening to this, hit me up. I'll join forces with the Vial Network, and I will turn it into Sports Center, ESPN, if you want it to be that.
You know, I've actually made a lot of criticisms to him that I think are also super constructive, which is like maybe get a voice coach because he's very.
Oh God!
No, because
That's
I think
so mean.
No, I really mean it. I think he actually asks good questions, and I think the biggest strength that he has from a business side of things is he's always getting the next guest. Like he's been able to really ride the wave of his following into that. But I think structurally, like for all of the employees that he has, they are not like ready with their multimedia to like share the clips. Like they always say, show don't tell. Like they don't do the very basics that makes like a company like me, a company of one, and you guys. I think we just run circles around it because we're offering, I think, points of view that are that might stem more from a fan base and not versus like I was in this position, so I know. Like I don't know, and again, to each their own, right? Sure. But yeah, you know, it was interesting to read that he's got these ambitions to be sports center because I didn't see him as that. Whereas you guys are specifically talking about the game of the show.
Yeah, he's not doing real analysis of any of this stuff. His show is primarily gossip about reality television, interviews with people from reality television, and then he does dating advice on his like off shows or whatever. And that's fine. And obviously going deeper, right? Where do you get that name from?
So we had our Patreon episodes are called Digging Deeper. We've been doing for years. And then he started doing something called Going Deeper. And now I'm hearing about this sports bettor thing. What's going on?
I know.
I'm losing my mind.
Say what you will about Vial. I will die on this hill. He is still the greatest player who has ever played Bachelor. He has more screen time, more kisses, more roses, 2 back-to-back second place finishes. One of them was in a season that he crashed.
Never got first.
On Bachelor in Paradise, and he was the Bachelor in one of the most successful seasons ever. All of that.
Show.
What's that?
Never hosted the show. Never got first. Took him multiple seasons to get the lead.
But yeah, how wild is it?
Maybe he has more followers.
He's easy to dunk on because he makes these great. He lets his ego get in the way of his opinions, and for him, you know, now a few years later to look back, he was saying like, what's going to make Jesse Palmer a good host? He's just a guy who can call football games.
Yeah,
and like it was so obvious to see how charismatic Jesse Palmer was and how good he is at it that it's like no comparison in a million years.
He's a professional host. I mean, I think Vial was a little butthurt that he didn't get called for that. I think he wanted that job when Chris Harrison got excommunicated, and he didn't get it. All that said, I have no like personal feeling on the man as a man. His success in the game is irrefutable, and his success out of the game is irrefutable. He has the biggest podcast of any Bachelor player by far.
He's probably making more money than every other Bachelor podcast except for Off the Vine. Like they are making crazy money doing what they're doing, and there's a room for everybody. And you know, like again, if you see him with a terrible take, you just give a better take, and that's the beauty of the internet. Speaking of takes, I wanted to ask you guys, and I'd love to get both of your answers about internet chatter. You guys have a subreddit, like most popular shows do, where people can criticize you. How much of that makes its way into your ecosystem? Do you have like a no read policy, or is some of it worthwhile advice? I'd love to know what you guys think about criticisms online.
What do you got, Lizzie?
Chad and I differ wildly on this. Every criticism I've read of myself online, I never forget, and I think about every day. So I try to have a no read policy, but unfortunately, sometimes they still get through to me. And that's like when you're saying he needs to take voice lessons. I'm like, people have criticized my voice. People have criticized my face. People have criticized everything about me. And it's horrible. And the YouTube has made it even more intense because before I used to just be able to, you know, just be audio and people could only criticize that. But now Pandora's box, baby.
Right?
We're on YouTube.
It was the devil, right? It's like if your podcast stunk, no one would care to comment about it. It's a real deal with the devil.
Yeah, and that's what Chad says. Chad says it fuels him.
It does. I mean, for me, it's like I have kind of a creative idea of what I want to do and anything I'm working on, and I will follow that track as far as I can. But every once in a while, you do want to see what is the reaction to the thing you're making, because ultimately, whatever your intent was in making a piece of art is 100% irrelevant once you release it to the public. Now, whatever people are seeing in it is what's in it, whether you meant to put it there or not. And so I'm very curious about, how people react to these things. I remember, like, a good example, but I will also try to take those reactions, even if they're negative, and turn it into something interesting in terms of content. A good example.
You remember some mean things people have said too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I take the mean stuff and try to make it funny. Like I used to do a podcast called Dudesy with a friend of mine, and we put out the first episode, and universally, like, half the comments in that first episode were like, "What's wrong with this guy's face?" Talking about my face, which I had, for those who don't know, cancer, and I had surgeries and all this shit. So we took that in the very next episode and did a segment called "What's Wrong with This Guy's Face," where I got to tell the story of having cancer, which kind of like silenced anybody saying that.
Did they all apologize?
It was a way to. No, of course. Yes. Everyone apologized. It was just a bunch of apologies on our YouTube comments. No, nobody apologized.
People sometimes think that you're not going to read it. And I too, like Lizzie, I've got a policy, having been banned from the main subreddit. I've got a policy.
Wait, what? You're banned?
I'm long banned. They were super unreasonable, and they blocked me on speculation of Reality Steve's spoiler of someone who had died. And I my big mistake was even interacting with people in the first place. Like I would have my name as my subreddit to be like, look, if you want to talk to me, I'm going to talk to you. We're going to go back and forth, because the comedian in me, if you get heckled, you just respond. It's not, but then the thing you learn is when you respond, then they go, well, you were responding with your big platform. And like, I just never saw it that way, because I came from there. Like I came from who the hell's Dave Neal to fuck Dave Neal. And it's like, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I guess I'm not one of you guys anymore. You know, even though we're all humans. So yeah, I find it interesting because, I still source a lot of my content from the Reddits, but if I do see a scenario where my name's mentioned in a title, I just can't click on it because I'm aware that it'll hurt my day. And one of the worst days. How do I not? It's just, you just have to, it's just like an alcoholic has to say, I'm not even going to walk into the bar. Right. Yeah. And I mean, on one of the toughest days, dealing with criticism that I had to deal with last year, probably the toughest day of the year was the first day I was taking my wife and baby out to dinner after, he was born. He was a few weeks old, and it was our first time going out. And I wasn't even going on Reddit, but something was said that was so aggressive about me that it made its way to me through multiple text messages. And like, it messed my day up. And I was so mad that I let it rob me of that joy that I had. And I'm like, never again, never again. So I think Nick is a good example of someone who doesn't feed anything whatsoever. There's rumors about him and his wife, doesn't even feed it, because even like anything becomes a news story. And then it's like, so like, I respect that side of things from him. But again, when you're at the level you guys are at, it's like, it's got to be very tough. Like, you guys only have each other. No one knows what it's like other than me, you guys, and several others to have a take that might receive, people willfully mischaracterizing you online or saying just mean things.
That's a part of it.
And I don't like, if a person in the street said these things to me, I would be like, oh, that person's like obviously going through something, dealing with mental illness or whatever. But for some reason, when it's like written, I'm just like, oh, well, that's what everyone thinks. That's what everyone thinks, and I'm terrible.
Yeah. The bottom line is, though, like, it's not going to stop.
Look like the Easter Island statue. That's the one I got this week. You can only comment if you follow me on my Instagram, but someone followed me and wrote all these horrible things to me, and I was just like, God dang it! Do I turn comments off? I don't even know how to protect myself from this anymore.
But right, like, you have to still maintain your authenticity, because imagine, and by the way, we see this with Bachelor contestants, right? Where they try to be everybody's everything. And it's like, it makes for bad TV. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. I'm of the opinion that we are post-pandemic going back to like good TV. We're not there yet, but I think the last couple of seasons, everyone was so afraid to become the villain on the show that it's made for bad TV, and they have to actively find people that are kind of willing to shenay it up a little bit. And as audiences, we should almost respect that, to be like, all right, they're leaving it on the field. Like, let's not take it home off the show. Otherwise, we're just going to have a show where everyone is tight-lipped. Like, what are your thoughts on kind of where, sort of the fabrication of drama in getting contestants to be willing to go on that ride?
Are you talking about Bachelor specifically, or dating formats specifically, pretty much?
Bachelor specifically for the constructing of a villain, because they have to be kind of in on it.
Yeah, I think what you saw with Maria Georges in Joey Graziede's season 28 really changed the game. She was a lovable villain. Everyone liked her. She was the biggest star out of that season. She was going to be the Bachelorette until whatever happened behind the scenes, and she lost out, and they slotted Jen Tran in. But I think all of these players are coming into the game. I mean, nobody comes into the game, into Bachelor, thinking, all I care about is getting married and having kids. Everybody is somewhere on a sliding scale of completely for the right reasons and completely for the wrong reasons. And they all are thinking, if I make it far enough in this, I might wind up on Traitors. I might wind up on Special Forces. I might wind up on House of Villains. Those shows are what we call third wave reality TV. These are shows where they take people from a bunch of different reality disciplines, put them together in some kind of psychosocial dynamic game or a physical challenge type game or whatever. You can have a super long, super lucrative career in reality TV now if you come out of a Bachelor franchise or any of these franchises. And that can mean being the villain. I don't think that is like, it's not as much of a brick wall that you hit where it destroys your life, where it, like with Brendan Morais and Piper James on whatever season that was of Bachelor in Paradise, where they were excommunicated by Grocery Store Joe and lost 200,000 followers.
His gang of disgruntled females kicked him off the beach. I definitely think there was a period where you couldn't be a villain and everyone was so scared to say anything. And I do think we are coming back around. I am hoping we're going to get lovable villains in Grant's season. It's just, you don't want to watch reality TV where everyone is so scared to say anything. It's boring and it doesn't let the players play. See what they can do.
Yeah, Brendan and the Brendan scenario was interesting because they weren't necessarily villains in the sense that they had anything to offer. Like, they weren't offering any entertainment other than that they were caught on a hot mic.
Yes.
So they had no, it was kind of the worst type of villain you could have, because there was
that's like what Lizzie was talking about, that moralistic judgment. And it's not from the audience, it's from the producers. At least it was then. When they were caught on that hot mic saying, I want to get 10,000 Instagram followers out of this or whatever, the producers then went to Grocery Store Joe and said, you have to go kick them off the beach now. None of that was happening organically. It was all scripted by the producers. When that happens, the producers are sending the message, if you even say the word Instagram in our show, we will destroy your life. And so now, for the next 3 seasons of Paradise after that or whatever, everybody comes on there and those seasons are terrible because everybody knows they ruined these players' lives for just saying the word Instagram. And I think that
they victimized Natasha Parker in that. And then you have the end of that storyline is in the credits where they say, and Natasha Parker got 400,000 Instagram followers and she's spraying champagne. And it's just like, oh, okay. Yeah. So only Instagram followers for the good people.
Well, yeah, she was a protected player because she at the time was a co-host of an official Bachelor Nation podcast called Clickbait. No longer with us, RIP. But
I could come back.
Yeah, that was a very interesting era of the game. And I agree with what you're saying, Lizzie. I think the villains are going to come back to be the people we love to hate. And as long as the show, the producers, don't send Jesse Palmer out to admonish them live at a Women Tell All or something like this, as long as the producers don't position those players as moralistically deplorable, we're good. Let us.
Well, don't you think they did that with Devin?
But Devin was a different kind of case. Yeah. I'm looking mainly at Maria Georges. She was a villain, and they were going to make her the Bachelorette. Yeah, that to me is a step in the right direction.
I think with her, she became so popular, she realized the mental health aspect wasn't worth it. She was, you become the lead. That's a 2-year contract, not a 1 year. And you're essentially 1 or 2 brand deals away from paying for itself. If you I know a recent lead who got like a $60,000 like Doritos commercial that was rejected. And it was like an instant Instagram post that they could have had. So there's a lot of money on the line here to like you mentioned, the ecosystem that's been developed just in the last few years, kind of since Bachelor in Paradise went away, was Traders, Special Forces, these shows. Even Deal or No Deal Island is an opportunity now for some alumni. We haven't had a dating show contestant, but we're getting Survivor contestants going on there, which, by the way, is my favorite show right now. But yeah, you're seeing like the currency of Paradise was dangled in front of people, like, we'll bring you back, like they brought Shanae back, and then they could show people, like, look, we took care of Shanae, we brought her back. Now that Paradise is coming back this year, they have that currency again where they can dangle some good sound bites out of people.
Possibly.
Yeah, but when you're deciding whether you're doing Bachelor in Paradise or a different third wave show, it's that's an interesting choice to me now. I'm like, can you still get the numbers that you would have out of Bachelor in Paradise? I don't know. And your edit, like, I don't know. But I am happy that there's this villain track available to them now.
Yeah. They're also, Bachelor in Paradise this year is also now competing with Love Island USA in a way that it wasn't before. Because last year, when there was no Paradise, a lot of Bachelor in Paradise fans watched Love Island USA season 6. And like, I was one of them. I ain't going back. I'll watch Bachelor in Paradise for sure. But there's no way it will be as good as Love Island. And I think a lot of people's minds have been made up on that. I don't know what this Bachelor in Paradise season 10 is going to look like, but it better be drastically different from the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, what I would like to see on Paradise is try to trick the contestants into thinking they're not on camera. Some of the best things we saw was finding out their real thoughts on things when they thought they weren't on a mic, you know? So you had this giant playa, which they could, was a perfect set, right? Because they could really film you from far away. But I think what they really need is to have some like safe zones that aren't safe. I don't know. Maybe it's a little...
Well, we had the thing in the mic room, remember, with Genevieve Parisi, and there was a bathroom conversation.
Yeah, those are so voyeuristic, and we love them as audience. Now, I want to ask you guys about Jen Tran. I got blasted this year for really just speaking the truth, which was she was essentially the third choice, and they really left her hanging out to dry with a bad joke she told. And I mean, obviously Devin was like a super villain, but I thought Jen did. I mean, I thought she's done great with every opportunity she's had. What are your thoughts
100%.
about her? I guess you would call it her gameplay after the show, like the way she handled Dancing with the Stars and teasing her relationship.
What do you think,
I mean, from what we know of the facts, she was the third choice. We literally saw the masked Daisy before her on camera, so she's at least the second. Her whole season's not cast for her. There's a secret, restraining order, and then all of those Marcus allegations that are just terrifying. Like, poor Jen Tran, and then she commits history by being the first woman to propose on the show, and then they frame it in this horrible way where they're forcing her to watch it next to Devin while she's crying. And then she's what looks to me a late add to Dancing with the Stars because she wasn't on the official whatever promo photos. And then she develops this will they, won't they romance. Tyler Cameron, Hannah Browning, the whole thing. I loved it. I loved all the parasocial plays they were doing. It's incredible. I'm so proud of her. And I underestimated her for sure.
Yeah, she was put, I think, in a very impossible situation, and she turned it into something that was, I mean, like Lizzie's saying, historic. Her proposing to Devin in the end there is something we've never seen before. That door is now open for other bachelorettes to potentially do. I don't know whose idea it was, if it was hers, if it was the producers, whatever the case, that's what's in the document. And I think what she did with the Dancing with the Stars, I mean, she made the most out of that situation. I don't think that ABC or the producers, Warner Brothers, NZK, I don't think that they could ever make up to her what they did to her. I don't think they could ever do anything that would make right the horrible damage they did to her and to that entire season. I mean, they just ended it with a creative decision of making her watch back the proposal to Devin after the hot seat with him. So he came out, they had their big conversation, they got in their fight, everybody's crying, she's sobbing, and then Jesse Palmer's like, well, we've got to play that clip now. Do you want to see it? And she literally audibly says, do I have a choice? When your bachelorette says that, the damage that did to the franchise is like immeasurable. I had so many people DMing me, I will never watch this show again. Joan Vassos's Golden Bachelorette ratings were horrible. It was the worst rated Bachelor product of all time. And that was immediately on the heels of it.
And I don't know about you guys, but I could tell from the second I was making YouTube videos, like money talks, right? And I was like, this isn't even worth me getting out of bed. I could literally get more views burping my son on camera than covering her season. And only because there was nobody. And I thought it was a good season. It had a good story, but it didn't get to that level of like audience need to talk about this. So just as we wrap this up here with Grant, what are you seeing from the cast that makes you feel like this is a great cast? Any specifics, Lizzie, about what like jumps out at you?
We just filmed a 2-part episode breaking down their social media, the Instagrams and the TikToks. And we've seen, professional cast before, but it's usually 70%. The Instagrams we looked at, 98% professional Instagrams. Everyone is ready. The competition is going to be so fierce. There's no one who you're like, oh, well, that person could be a night one. Like, I don't even know what they're going to do. I can't wait. And the trailer was so good. I love that they're doing Grant's music and they're leaning into his tear play. The nation is going to love this emotional man.
Tell my audience what about tear play. One of these great terms.
So, tear play is just what we use to refer to crying, and it can be real or imagined or whatever. It would probably be one of my main tools if I were playing. I honestly wouldn't be able to stop probably. But it can make any story you're telling about a tragic thing that happened to you, what we call a PTC, a personal tragedy card. It makes it more for TRR for the right reasons. If you're crying, if we saw Grant last season do that secret love level 3 of Jen Tran, I forget who he was talking to, but he was crying to another man about his feelings for Jen. And it just makes you think, this can't be for television. That's real emotions.
Yeah. Chad, what was sticking out to you with regard to this cast?
When we look at their Instagrams and TikToks and stuff, what we're primarily looking for is a thing called the parasocial gaze, which is how do these players look at you through the camera? That's what makes you at home as an audience feel that you have some kind of personal connection to this person who is, in many cases in The Bachelor, it's when they do ITMs in the moments. Those are the little confessionals that they'll do where they're talking right into a camera and being like, I can't believe we had to go on this group date. I got hit in the head with a football and I didn't even get the rose. That stare, literally looking back at the person through the camera is it's one of the biggest things you need to have, and it needs to be good in order to pop off the screen. So when you look at somebody's Instagram, you're looking for that. If they're talking to you in a reel, if the pictures are just looking back at you through the lens, whatever. And they just melt you with these parasocial gazes. So you know that they're going to all be very good in front of a camera and know how to work the camera. And so that is primarily what you look for, I think, for me anyway, when you're looking for not just somebody who's going to be good in The Bachelor, but when you're looking for a reality TV star, people who can subsist with a career in this genre that will go far beyond The Bachelor. And I think we're looking at, I don't know. I mean, almost all of them had fantastic parasocial gazes, and their Instagrams are like clean, well shot. They're the main character in all the photos. Most of them had multiple photos, and this is something that I try to coach all players in, that show the producers what you're going to look like on a cocktail party, on an after the group date party, on
a beach,
all of it. Yeah, they're great. I mean, they're really, really fucking strong. And I just don't know if we've ever seen a season quite like this, at least in terms of the Instagrams and TikToks, the parasocial power.
And it's just the world we live in, right? Where if you're going to even apply to work at some random corporation, they want to check out your socials and see what your vibe's going to be. So I've always thought there is no wrong reason. Like best case scenario, you fall in love, you get a couple Instagram followers, and like maybe you get to go on Traders. That doesn't make it the wrong reason, Like we're all in this for our own reasons, taking care of ourselves. So yeah, I think this show can turn around from sort of the disaster it had this past fall, as ratings wise, with like just a really good couple moments that lead up to like a Rachel Recchia crying on the stairs, like those types of, if this show can bring some of that heartbreak and drama I think it comes right back because, even if the initial ratings are kind of soft, if stuff happens, the audience will talk and they're going to say,
That's
Absolutely.
how Love Island USA season 6 took off. No one was watching the USA seasons before that except me and some other people, I guess. But this past season got the word of mouth. And I have one friend, and if she tells me to watch a reality show, I have to do it. And I can't wait for this season. We were watching what was going to happen with TikTok, and I think that's part of why I love to see a video where they're talking to camera, because I really do think that's the social media of the future. I don't think people want to watch videos. They don't want to watch still images.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And it can tell you so much. And I've even applied it to my real dating life where one of my friends inspired me. She would go on FaceTime dates or Zoom before ever meeting anyone in real life, because you can tell so much just from how someone talks.
Yeah.
And in that first minute. So why waste, all the effort?
Our precious time. Well, look, I want to let everyone know where they can find you. You guys have been crushing it. Obviously, you've been in the podcast world, but also on YouTube now. And you guys have live events. You guys have been at 33 Taps for live watch parties. I love that place.
Yes, you have to come visit and watch with us.
Give me some dates that it's just a couple weeks notice. I'll definitely come out.
It's every Monday.
Yeah, maybe playoffs.
Are you doing it every Monday? Great.
Yeah, every Monday, 33 Taps in Silver Lake. If you live in Los Angeles, we'll be out there watching Grant's season. That's
where I took Reality Steve when he was in town when we first met, and he ordered dry chicken wings. And I was like, I tease him to this day about not getting any flavor with his chicken wings. I was like, what a psychopath. So much
Reality Steve, catching strays.
Yeah, I love the guy. Well, look, anything else we can promote for you guys while I have you here? Did we capture it all?
I think that's it, man.
Well, thanks again for jumping on. It's always a pleasure. I miss you. And hopefully I'll be seeing you guys soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks
we
for
love
having us,
all your content. Internet King.
Internet King.